Let's talk about determining the time of death, or TOD. You hear that term a lot when you watch crime shows. TOD, time of death. So the first way we determine time of death is through livor mortis, which means death color. And what livor mortis is actually the settling of blood to the lowest parts of the body position. So if a body is laying on its back, the blood's going to settle along the entirety of the backside of the person. And when we're talking about lividity, we're talking about that pooling in the body. It's going to start about 2 hours after death and becomes permanent after 8 hours. And livor mortis can be affected by temperature, environmental conditions, and anything that impedes blood flow, such as ropes being bound around the person's wrist or ankles. Blood can't flow, and so you're going to see different marks there. And what livor mortis helps to do is see what position the corpse was during the first 8 hours, and if the body's been moved. And to see if the body's been moved, we'll look at something called dual lividity. So we know that lividity sets in about 2 hours after death. And if somebody is moved before it sets in permanently, before that 8 hour window, so between 2 and 8 hours, then there's going to be lividity in another part of the body to show the position that they were in after that. So you'll see 2 different points of pooling, and that shows us that the body was moved. Rigor mortis is actually death stiffness, and it's temporary. It does not stay forever. It begins within 2 hours of death, of course, within 2 hours, depending on what the temperature is. And after 12 hours, the body is said to be in full rigor, so the entire body is rigid from head to toe. It ends between 36 and 48 hours. If there's rigor in the face and neck, so the face and neck is stiff, and it just began, so we're looking, within 2 hours of death. If the entire body is stiff, then we know we're looking at about 12 hours. If there's rigor in the legs and feet, but not in the face and neck, we know that rigor is leaving. So that it's because it starts from head to toe, it's also going to end in that same sequence. So once the body's in full rigor, then it starts to release from the face down. And the stiffness occurs because the skeletal muscles, the muscles that move our skeleton or our bones so we can walk and lift, they're unable to relax, so they stay stiff. And different things affect rigor. A person's weight often throws people off. The more fat somebody has, the slower rigor is going to actually set in. But anything else, so type of clothing, if there's warm clothes on the body, if a person is running a fever, or if they have high levels of physical activity, they are actually going to speed up rigor, so it's going to happen faster. So if we're looking at normal being 2 hours of starting, it could be less than that. So we're looking at maybe 1 hour. And look at physical activity. If there is somebody's lifting and they're maybe doing bicep workouts in their arms, rigor could actually start in the arms before the rest of the body because there's an increased temperature in those muscles. Algor mortis is referred to as death heat, and it describes the temperature loss of a corpse. A thermometer is inserted into the liver to take that temperature, and then we look at the rate of cooling. We know that the body is going to cool at a rate of 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit in the first 12 hours, and then it's going to cool 0.7 degrees after those first 12 hours. So it's until it reaches ambient temperature, which means that it's going to be the temperature of its surroundings. And what happens is if the temperature is cold, heat loss occurs faster. So if you go outside, you get colder, and when it's cold outside, you get colder faster unless you have warm clothing on. That's going to keep your heat in. So if it's cold, heat loss occurs faster. Wind also increases the rate of heat loss, and then excess body fat slows it, and so does the presence of clothing. We can also look at stomach and intestinal contents if we know when the last meal was. If there's undigested stomach contents, then death occurred between 0 and 2 hours. If the stomach's empty, there's food in the small intestine, then we know death occurred at least 4 to 6 hours after they ate. If the small intestine's empty but wastes are found in the large intestine, then death occurred 12 or more hours after the meal. And then we also look at the eye. If the eyes are open, a thin film will develop 2 to 3 hours after death. And so we know if we come upon a body, the eyes are open, we see that film, then we know it's somewhere in that window or after. We'll also look at potassium levels in the eye. There's fluid in your eyeball. And what happens is, during autopsy, they'll actually put a needle into the eye and extract some of that fluid and measure the potassium levels.